Welcome to Tech Talks. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of Philly Tech, and your host for Tech Talks. Tech Talks is a show dedicated to entrepreneurs, software companies, tech startups, and people within the software and tech ecosystem. We really want to give you value. The show is on every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. So I am so excited today. I am working with Irwin, this software company called Irwin. I started working with Irwin back in 1999 to 2004. It was the first software company I worked for. And actually a few months ago, I started working directly with Irwin. And the company has changed. There's a lot of new things to talk about. It's very exciting. So I wanted to introduce everyone to Sam Benedict. He is the VP of Solution Strategy at Irwin, and the guy that I work with day in and day out to help me build solutions in the data areas for our clients. So welcome to the show, Sam. Let's do an elbow pump. Elbow pump. Boom. All right, so again, I worked with Irwin back in the day, right? But let's talk about just real quick, Sam, about your background, right? So I'd love to understand and love the audience to understand what you did before, because the company that you were working for was acquired by Irwin, right? Now they're integrated into Irwin. But yeah, tell the audience about your background in software, in tech, and what'd you do before getting into Irwin?
Right, so I have a long career of technology management, going back to AT&T, Lucent Technologies, some telecom software companies over the course of time, transitioning from telecom to tech. Ultimately ran a very large data warehouse operation at one of the big Blue Cross and Blue Shield affiliates for a number of years, before getting into a startup company called Analytics Data Services. That company was really designed around a product for source-to-target data mapping, beyond source-to-target data automation, and we grew the product to a full-stream, fully enriched product that can handle data governance, data intelligence, and DevOps management, all of that with automation and speed. We caught the eye of Irwin in about 2018, as they were looking to embark on expanding from their traditional data modeler into a data governance platform. They had some ideas on the drawing table. Our CTO, Mike Boggs, met with them and proposed the idea of an OEM. That OEM idea quickly turned into a partnership / acquisition opportunity, and we pursued that back in July of 2018. And we've been with Irwin ever since, tripling the investment in the tooling, and really advancing it far beyond where we could have taken it as that startup company. For that startup, I was the VP of global sales and marketing. And many times when people say, well, I never heard of Analytics Data Services, I always say, hey, that's my fault, right? The world's a big place. It's hard to have a global reach when you're a small company in a for-profit situation, running on a very small budget. But in spite of that, we had a number of tier one customers in the Fortune 50, and a footprint that was big enough to make us interesting to Irwin.
Yeah, so many people that I've talked to and work with, they think they know what Irwin is, right? Because Irwin, the name connotates data modeling, database design, right? So, but Irwin has gone through a transformation over the last few years. They're still doing data modeling and database design, and we're going to talk about that. But tell the audience, Sam, what is Irwin today? What do they do today?
So Irwin today, and you're right, I wouldn't call it a stigma, because it's not necessarily a bad thing that they're the preeminent modeling tool in the industry, but that's what they were known for. And even today, when people pass by our booth at a show, when they used to pass by our booth at a show pre-COVID, they would say, yeah, I know Irwin. I know everything you do. And I would tell them, I don't think you do. And I hold up a $100 bill and say, I'll bet you $100 you don't know what Irwin does.
Right.
We're radically different. We do have the great modeling tools that we've always had, but we've added things like enterprise architecture tools, business process modeling tools. Of course, the what we call the data intelligence suite, which is that full array of DevOps and data governance tools. And we've pulled that all together in a highly integrated way, unlike many of the larger software companies that buy things and bolt them together and they don't really ever integrate or work together. We have ways of seamlessly sharing data models into the data governance space and into the DevOps space. So we really have transformed Irwin from a data modeling company into what we call a data company. And that has taken on new turns as data intelligence. So we're getting feedback from folks like Gartner, IDC, and Forrester that we're doing the right things. We're in the leader quadrants. We're fast gaining on products that have been in the market for more than a decade doing similar things. And it's because we know the technology space and we're making a heavy investment in these tools and technologies.
So again, everyone knows, most people in the data field and in governance, they know Irwin, right? And Irwin really now handles two areas. So you have data at rest. Data at rest is traditional Irwin, data modeling, database design. It also generates code for data at rest and works with all databases, all warehouses, all NoSQL databases and everything. But really what we want to introduce to the audience here is what Irwin is today, right? Data in motion, data lineage, reporting end-to-end data lineage. So Sam, talk about that, right? In terms of data in motion, what does that mean, right? And what does it give value to customers?
So it's a good question. So data at rest is really design phase. It tells us what our data looks like. We can understand the metadata that's there, the tables, the columns, the details, how it relates back to the model, even connections to things like glossaries. The data in motion piece is what are we doing with the data? Mm-hmm. That's what tells the story about where the data comes into the organization and where it leaves the organization, whether that's in a report, a data extract, or some other form. And if we don't have visibility into the data in motion, it becomes a struggle for us to tell the story and a bigger struggle for us to meet compliance initiatives head on. When you talk about things like GDPR and CCPA, understanding where the data came from, how that data has evolved or changed from a source system that you may or may not own, all the way out to an extract file, an email system, a reporting layer, all of that's critically important to telling the story and keeping people's data protected and private. On the other side of that, it also lends to our ability to get better analytics out of our data, right? If I don't know how good, bad, or ugly the data is that I'm working with, and I'm a data scientist, that's a variable that I can't tolerate. I can't go in and create a model and predict healthcare outcomes or business outcomes or any critical outcome or actionable insight if I'm using data that I'm just not sure about, right? Who knows if it's altered? There was a case years ago around data marketplaces where people were going and procuring data sets, but there was no history, there was no backdrop, nothing about that data. It was just a bunch of data points for sale. People would use it, and they soon realized that this data, because it doesn't have lineage and curation and all the things we need to better understand whether we can trust it, it really was just an exercise in futility. We're running models, we're getting insights that aren't real, and we don't know for sure if we're headed in the right direction as a business. This is the importance of understanding and managing and being able to visualize the data in motion, not just for data science people, for business analysts, for report analysts, and for the leadership, the C-suite of every company to understand whether they're doing things the right way and they're headed in the right direction based on real measurable data.
So again, in terms of what Irwin does and the value, Sam, I mean, so it typically is, it always starts with the same types of things. People want to reverse engineer and document data at rest or data moving, right? People know Irwin for data at rest, right? So one of the biggest things that I want to talk about and have the audience understand is these smart data connectors. So one of the biggest values that I have seen with Irwin are these smart data connectors. It's the largest repository of connectors to data that allow you to not only reverse engineer and document data moving, ETL, Python scripts, all data and how it's moving, but also allows you to generate code, ETL code, right? These are things that people just don't understand. So tell the audience about these smart data connectors, how you're able to create this repository of data, and talk about the value there, Sam.
Yeah, so if we look at most companies today, one of the biggest issues they have is there's a massive gap in the documentation that they have. And the reason there's a gap in documentation is because it's difficult to produce. It's even more difficult long term. And companies just aren't willing to invest in it, or they haven't been until now. And the reason we come in as a value point is with our smart data connectors, we can decompose, and document code from things like SQL procedures, XML files from every major ETL tool in the market, and even fourth generation languages like PySpark and Scala. These are things that allow a business to go from zero visibility or documentation to a full library end to end of their data lineage that says, here's where the data comes in, here's all the ways we're transforming it, calculating it, deriving it, and we're delivering that into a document that's easy for everybody to read, including somebody that's a business analyst. They can see a source to target mapping in both a visual sense, here's where it's moving to and from, all the ways it's transforming, or in a traditional sense, in a tabular format that says, here are my target columns and my source columns and how they intermingle and what happens in between. Now, maintaining that becomes an easy exercise because every time we have a release cycle and we update the code that's sitting in our target systems, we can go out and pick up that same XML, pull it back in, update and reversion every iteration of change that happens in the physical data movement. That is power, and it's easily sustained, and it gives you the actual data in motion directly off of the code written by the ETL developer. And ETL developers, they love to document things. That's a big misnomer that ETL developers don't like to document things. They love to, but they do it in code. And the problem is the rest of us don't understand that code, and this product from Irwin allows us, those smart connectors, to speak on the same level by auto-documenting all of the code, whether it's getting off of a very expensive hardware platform that's using ELT, so massive amounts of stored procedure code. It would take months, maybe even years, to decode and document all of that legacy data, but we can do that in a matter of weeks, document everything so that it can be picked up and pushed into a new and more modern platform, things like Snowflake that we're seeing in the market, much more cost effective. But until we understand what we're doing at the legacy level, it's hard to make that jump to new architectures. And so the Irwin Data Intelligence Suite gives you that in a smart connector. And once you've documented your legacy, as you mentioned, Michael, you can pick up all of those documents, which are mappings, and you can put those out in any form you want. Snowflake SQL wrapped in Python, pushing into AWS into your Snowflake database, or any other repository that you might choose as a cloud option.
Great. So come on back in a few minutes. We're going to talk in more detail about the value, right? So we talked about Irwin and how it gives you, again, everyone, gives you the ability to document end-to-end data flow and data lineage, reverse engineer, automatically connecting to things and documenting it. All right? Huge value for compliance, right? I have a customer that I'm working with that they just got the job and they I don't even understand my environment. I need to understand my environment. I need to analyze my environment so I can do things in the future. So come on back in a few minutes. We're going to talk about forward engineering, right? We're going to talk about Irwin customers, right? So how Irwin saves you so much time. So much time. Customers are saying that Irwin saves up to 70% of their time. So come on back in a few minutes. I'm looking forward to talking with you. Thanks.
So I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Listen, what will make your event simply beautiful? Is it your attire, your decorations, your entertainment? Well, join me, Alicia Simone, as I chat with some amazing vendors and clientele who will share their stories and images and their experiences. Right here on RVN TV, Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. and Wednesday at 4 p.m. It will be simply beautiful. See you then.
In terms of cost.
So welcome back to Tech Talks. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I am the founder and CEO of Philly Tech. And I'm here with Sam Benedict. He is the VP of Solution Strategy at Irwin. And we are really trying to explain to the market what Irwin is today. The value that Irwin provides we just talked about, in data chaos, organizing data chaos, helping you with compliance, helping you understand your data and how it works so you can build new things, and also in areas of architecture modernization that Sam had said those things. So Sam, tell the audience where, within those challenges that I just mentioned and those projects, what are you seeing in terms of the market? Where are people seeing the most value from Irwin today?
So, the value that we're seeing is in addressing very specific needs. When we talk about compliance, it's how do I get my business GDPR compliant? How can I see and tell the story and get through an audit with ease, right? Because I have no documentation. I've been operationally pretty functional with my data, but the only people that understand it well enough to explain it are developers. So now I need to create this abstraction layer, this centralized repository of data intelligence that helps the rest of the world, including auditors, understand how that data is being used and whether or not I have the capacity to remediate, remove, and update any individual's data in my system. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, when we talk about the data chaos scenario, sometimes it's not about getting a handle on your compliance program. It's about getting an understanding of what we're really doing here with our data. We look at our costs, right? Millions and millions of dollars in hardware systems that are now, by most accounts, considered obsolete. In many cases, they're sunsetted. In the case of Netezza, they're sitting in industries all over the world, and nobody has a clean way to get off of them because they can't understand what's happening inside. And until you can document and understand the legacy, you can't really pick it up and reformat it into something more efficient, more cost-effective, and ultimately more meaningful to your business. So these are the things that the Irwin DI suite does in conjunction with the data modeler, which can pull out all of the models for those environments and forecast and create new models for your upcoming to-be architecture. So we weave that together into a comprehensive platform that gives you end-to-end capabilities, not just for better visibility, but for full documentation, auditability, and automation, which gives you speed, both in the documentation of the legacy and the generation of the to-be system. Generating native code for every ETL tool on the market, generating stored procedures by the thousands, wrapping those in Python to give them procedure code and put them in the cloud environments of today, right? There's lots of options there. It's giving companies the power to do more with the same number of people. Every year you see budgets cut for IT, and the business wants more. The only way you satisfy more requirements with the same or lower budget numbers is by using smart technology, and that's really what Irwin has brought to the table here, the ability to do more with less.
Yeah, so just to recap, I want to talk about some customer stories here in a second. But again, Irwin will allow you to reverse engineer, complete data flow, complete data lineage, right?
Correct.
It'll be able to connect directly to source systems and bring in that information. Whether it's ETL tools, it's SQL, it's stored procedures, it doesn't matter. It allows you to bring that data in, and then it also allows you to generate code automatically. So once you have that data in a model, you then make changes to those models. And then you forward engineer, able to generate code, native code that could be put back into the system. That saves tremendous amount of time. So let's talk about some customer success stories here, Sam. In terms of customers that you're seeing, right, what are some that you could talk about and the value that they saw from, from starting point they maybe didn't even know about Irwin to what they're able to do today?
Yeah, so I should qualify they didn't know about Irwin because everybody knows about Irwin, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Irwin is a household name in the IT space, but what they didn't know about Irwin is how Irwin has changed, how Irwin can bring them so much more in terms of technology for the heavy lifting, whether it's part of their governance program or their DevOps process. It's all about what's happening after the model for Irwin these days. Yes, the model is still ultra important, and it's a milestone and a key factor in every data governance and data management initiative, but it's after the model where Irwin has really picked up speed and really offers value. We have clients all over the world in every industry vertical. We have one of the largest energy companies in the world using our product in Europe, E.ON Energy, and they're using that to drive their GDPR compliance program. And still we have customers here in the US, many of the large health insurers like Cigna and Optum, and they're using that overall platform to not just modernize, but sort of give a little more speed and accuracy to everything they're doing. Using the code reverse and forward engineering capabilities, they're able to cut their timelines, right? The world of the past used to be, we design something, we map it. That mapping process takes time and effort by many people. And then when we get into the ETL space, that hand coding that used to happen would eat up all the remaining timeline in a project budget. And at the end of that, the QA people are asked to work weekends with their hair on fire and do all the quality work to get that into production at the last moment. And what we found is when you're using tools, right, the right tools at the right time, the Irwin Data Intelligence Suite can eliminate all of the bottlenecks in the DevOps process. So now we can produce that ETL faster and better and programmatically using software, right? Machine generated code is also easier to test because it's more efficient and it's more consistent. So now we've given back a wealth of time to the QA process at the end of the chain. We don't have to change our timeline, and our QA people can do their jobs thoroughly so that ultimately we get better quality output overall. And we do it faster. And again, it's not like we're eliminating jobs from the overall scenario. We're just making everyone's job faster and easier, and we can process a whole lot more code and advance the company's data initiatives a lot further with the same group of people and perhaps even lower budgets over the course of time.
Yeah. So I want you to describe a story actually for a company that I'm working with right now. So this company uses Informatica for ETL, right? Mm-hmm. And they want to move to SAP, right? They want to move, so they're bringing in SAP as a vendor, SAP HANA, and just explain, high level again, how much time and effort will be saved by using the Irwin tools to help with this process?
Yeah, so that kind of highlights another process that we have at Irwin. It's I wouldn't call it a separate initiative tools, but it's ETL migration.
Right.
Companies have been on very expensive ETL platforms for years. Many companies have multiple ETL platforms, things like DataStage and Informatica and SSIS. They have a little bit of everything. And they're paying maintenance on all those tools year over year. Those costs of those tools run their budget into the ground. and they can't afford more resources, better tools. And so it becomes this vicious cycle where we're stuck with very expensive tools and we don't have a way to get off of them, because ETL logic, once it's written in a tool, it's very hard to get anywhere with it unless you pay a lot of money to decouple, decompile, and document it. So in the past, ETL migration was not possible. They would look at it and say, it's going to cost us millions of dollars. It'll take us 5 to 10 years to recoup that cost. So let's just stay here in the boat that we're in and keep paying, right? It'll be somebody else, some other CIO's problem in a couple of years when I go get my next gig if I'm the CIO. So nowadays, though, we can look at that and we can say, hey, give me that XML from whatever tool you're on. We can reverse engineer and document all of that legacy code, and then we can basically switch the rules. So the component structures are different. The code is a little bit different. There are nuances to each tool, but we can flip it basically and take your 1,000 ETL jobs in Informatica and turn those into 1,000 HANA jobs. And we can do that in a matter of a few months, not years, not millions of dollars later. We're talking about months. And this, you can save all the money you spent on the conversion and probably show profit from the conversion when you talk about the cost offset over the course of 3 to 5 years, especially in cases where I've got multiple vendor tools happening. I've got Talend, I've got Informatica and DataStage, because I'm a bank maybe, and I've had 4 CIOs and they all came in with different tattoos from different vendors and they said, we got to have Informatica, right? They don't care what happens. They want their tools in. They've got the relationships. They plug those in. And then when they're gone in another year, the next guy comes in and he wants something different. It's okay that happens. It's part of the corporate structure. We've known about it forever. But now we have the ability to not have to live with the choices we've made in the past. We can pull it all together and we can consolidate, saving cost, giving us better consistency. And think about the resource constraints when you have to have 5 different skilled sets of ETL developers to work with all these tools. There's an expense to that in itself. If we can consolidate, we can confine those costs and we can reduce our overall expenditures on those tools and invest in tools that are getting us further around data science, around automation, and around the things that Erwin's
So thank you very much for coming to Tech Talks. Again, my name is Michael Bertoni. It's been a great show with Sam. Again, just to recap, Erwin, a lot of value, savings of time, increasing of productivity, and driving of revenue through data, right? And movement of data, right? Data lineage, all of these things that are giving Erwin tremendous value for their clients. So come on back to Tech Talks next week, every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. See you next week. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.